Hello friend, welcome back. In our previous video, we successfully complete our update portions, right? So now I want to delete it. So if you want to delete it, then we have to add another class. So go to our view, into the view area, they have also another building class. So now first of all, we have to add it. So they have the another class as a delete view. So that is a delete and then view. And also for the delete here also we have to add another input. So here I just want to input it as a form and then our Django, and into the Django in our URLs, into the from to the URLs I want to input another. So I want to input another package. So that is our another function name as a reverse. So before we use that reverse, so now they have for the delete they have also another one that is called that reverse lazy. Okay, so we have to add it. And now we first of all we have to create one of the class for this one. So now go to our class. So here I want to create another class, and I just name it as a delete musician. Okay, I just name it as a delete musician, and also it will be inherited our another class. So that is actually I define as a delete view, right? So I just simply take this. So here I just simply define our delete view, and now after that we have to define that model. That means from where you want to delete it. So I just delete it from our musician. That means from our musician model area, and then also after that we have to define our template. That means the template name. So I just simply define the template name. Here it will be redirected to one of the template. Into the template area I have defined as a fast. Okay, that means our fast app. So into the fast app that it will be as a delete underscore musician.html. So it will be redirected to our specific this page. That means the fast app. Into the fast app I have to create one of the page as a delete musician. And also here we have to define another one for the delete. So into the delete area, into the success, that means when it will be successfully deleted, where exactly it will be redirected. Okay, so for the reasons here you have to define as a success URL, success underscore URL. And for that success URL here I have already defined one of the function, that is our lazy. That means our reverse lazy. So with this reverse lazy we have to actually pass it. So here I just simply pass it to our fast app. That means I want to pass it in our URL. So that is our app name as a fast app. When it should be deleted, then it should be directed to our like index page. Okay, so I just simply copy it with this fast app. So with this fast app I have defined our index. So I just simply define that index. I hope you can well understand about it, friend. So now we have to create our this page. So now I just simply copy it. And now in our fast app area I want to create new file, and I just name that file as a delete musician.html. So now I just simply create it. So first of all here we have to load our basic things. Like here I just simply copy it, because here we have to add that things in our extended our base HTML, and also we have to add it. That means add our block. So I just simply add this block, right friend? And here first of all I want to take one of the h3 tag, and into the h3 here it will be displayed as a delete. I just put some of the informations like first name, and now if you want to delete the first name or last name, so this type of one of the message I want to display. So if you want to display it, then first of all we have to pass that our data, right? So if you want to pass that data, like here you can see from here I didn't pass any data. So if you want to pass it, like this type of one of the function we have to call. So I just simply better copy it, and now here I just simply paste it. That means with our context object name here I name it with the context object as a musician. Okay, so with this musician now we can actually access our this musician data. So now I just simply define with this musician I want to display our first name. That means our database all that field name, and also I want to display our another one with this musician and to display that last name. So that is the last name. And okay, after that I just simply want to define the questions mark, and then I want to load one of the form. And into the form here we don't need this class, and also we don't need any action. I just simply define that method will be as a post. So now I want to delete it. Okay, so here first of all also we have to define our CSRF underscore token, and then I want to define one of the input field, and for the input field it will be as a submit type, and then name I have defined as a submit, and then value I define as a delete. Okay, I just simply name it as a delete, and also for this input here I define another class. Okay, I just simply define another class as a btn and danger. So for the delete I want to use it, and then btn sm. Okay, so I just simply defining it. And also here I want to load our another option, that means if this user is not want to cancel this, then where exactly it should be redirected also we have to defining it. So I just simply define one of the ahref, and into the ahref area I want to define as a cancel. That means from here you can actually cancel it. So if you want to put that link, first of all I would define on the class. Okay, I define the class as a btn and btn. Now I want you to use as a btn info class as a btn sm, and then also here we have to pass one of the URL. So I just simply pass one of the URL type. So I just simply define as a URL, and into the URL it should be redirected to our, if you go to our URL, and into the URL you can say I have already defined as a musician details with a specific one of the ID. So that means if you don't want to delete it, then it should be redirected to our musician details page, okay, with a specific ID data. So now I just simply copy it, and here that means here I define our musician details. So if you want to display it, the first of all here you have to define our app name, right? So I name it as a musician details. So that is our fast app. So I just simply define our fast app first, and then our musician details. And also here, as I told you, they have also one of the ID as a PK. So now we have to also pass it. So I think you already know about it. So I just simply define as a PK, and then I want to define that as a with this musician, because from here I have already passed our this musician, right? Into the view here you can see I just pass that our context object with this musician. So with this musician we can actually access our ID. So now with this musician I want to display our ID, that means our primary key I define as a PK. Perfect. So now we have to add our URL. So for the delete I want to create one of the path. So I just simply define that path. It should be as a musician delete, right? And also it should be deleted with a specific one of the ID. And then I have already created one of the class, so that is the musician class. So I just simply copy it, and now in our URL here I have defined that musician, that means the delete musician, and it should be as a musician delete. Okay, so now I want to visible our this data. That means here I want to add it in our, if you go to the details, so after this here I want to add it. Okay, so that is actually in our musician details. So here I want to add another button. So if you want to add another button for the delete, like here, that is our musician form, musician details. So into the musician details here I want to add another one. So better I just simply copy it. It should be just like that same. So here I just make the things as a danger. Okay, that means that will be as a danger class, and here I define as a delete. So I just name it as a delete. And then there is a musician here also that have one of the ID, because of all in our URL I have defined that ID, right? So that is actually the PK. So now our path actually I defined that with the musician, that means the musician delete. So now here we have to define in our fast app name, and then our musician delete, right? And musician delete will be PK with this musician, it should be displayed our primary key. It should be just like that same. And here I define class as a btn danger as a delete. Perfect. That means it should be redirected to our which page. Here it should be redirected to our, I define as a musician details. It should be redirected to into the musician details. It should be redirected to our this view, and that is actually the class. And into the class area, I have already defined on the template, and into the template, I have defined that fast tab and the delect musician, right? So now let's check this out. If you now click on the save all, now first of all check it, and now it's showing some of the error in our view. So there have some of these spaces mistake. So that is our musician. Here you can see I didn't define that is equal to. So here it should be as is equal to, and then our models, right? We did this time a lot of the time, so, but here I miss it. Now let's check this out again. Click on the save all. Yeah, now you can see it's not perfectly running. So now I want to check it, like if you now go to a home, refresh it, go to that our Kazarian. Here you can see there is another button as a delect. So if you click as a delect, then it should be redirected to our musician delect with a specific one of the ID. And into our musician delect page, I have defined two things. One is the delect, another cancel. So if you click as a cancel, then it should be redirected to our this specific musician details with the ID, right? So if you now go here into the musician details, here I have defined these things. So if you click as a cancel, so there is another button as a cancel. If you click as a cancel, it should be redirected to our fast tab and musician details with a specific one of the ID. Now you can see it's now perfectly redirected to our appropriate this ID page. And now if you want to delete it, like here, that is our test one. Okay, this one I want to delete it. Click as a edit, click as a delete. And now I want to delete this test one and test one. Click as a delete. Yes, now you can see friend, now it's perfectly deleted, and when it should be deleted, it should be redirected to our home page, and into the home page you can see it's now perfectly visible. So it's now redirected to our home page because of all into the view area. I have already defining it when it should be as a successful. I have defined that function as a reverse lazy. Into the reverse lazy with in our fast tab, with this fast tab it should be redirected to our index, right? So here in our URL with our app name, I have defined that index. So for the reasons when it should be deleted, it should be redirected to our index page. Now I think friend is very much clear to you. So here if you want to delete it, so there is option for the delete, there is an ID, that means our musician details. Click as a delete, it should be redirected to our musician delete. If you make the things as a cancel, it should be redirected to our specific this ID details page, and rather than if you delete it, now you can see it's not totally gone from here, and when it should be deleted, it should be redirected to our home page. So friend, I shared both of this way with you. You can, if you want to create some of the code application with using that function, how can create it. I have already discussed about that things with you in our previous all that section. And also right now I have discussed about that things with you. If you want to create one of the code application with using that class view, how can create it, I think it should be very much clear to you. And right now we are learning all that basic fundamental, and then together all that experience we will create 3 projects. Then whatever the things in your mind, everything will be very much clear. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.